You mentioned that the kids were passing the courses and not the exams. You brought that up. So we have a situation where for years it was sort of I don't know, a gentleman's agreement. Maybe that's not the right way to characterize it. But if the kid showed up and smiled and attended class and did the projects, you know, and had a B average, which 82% of the grades given out in Texas today are A's and B's. In many cases, they didn't even have to take a final exam. And if you compare that to the current testing regime, there's clearly a lack of connection there. In other words, although the kids were getting the A's and B's based on this test, which we think does track the curriculum, but hopefully we're going to find out soon enough, let's assume hypothetically that it did, says they didn't learn the materials. So we're spending all this money telling these kids they're getting A's and B's and then sending them off to have to take remedial courses in community colleges. I mean, I guess that's really what we've seen for years. So if the districts are left to their own on some of the higher level courses, what hope do we have that things will improve in terms of the overall academic performance without a test?
I think that the tests need to focus on the most critical areas. I think we've broadened what we call Texas Element of Knowledge and Skill, that we call the TEKS. I think those TEKS have become really broad. Okay. The key word being essential. Marcia, you were on the state board. You know how wide those TEKS are. And as we widen those TEKS and that deep, I think we make a mistake. Right. And so I think there needs to be some focus on that. And when you widen those TEKS and you haven't really had the test out there available for the teachers to know which one of them are on the test, because they're obviously not all on the test, then the failure rates begin to mount on new tests, and obviously just like we've done on TACS and TABS and all these other tests we've had, as time goes by, the education community focuses on what's on the test, and we begin to teach toward that test. I have some misgivings, to tell you the truth, about the emphasis we've placed on testing. The tests are essential. We must continue testing and accountability. I'm not one of these guys that says get rid of all of it. I know there's a cry among the moms out there especially that says get rid of all this testing, that we just can't continue to test these kids. You've got to stop all this foolishness. Testing has brought us the right direction, and it has brought us the right direction a long way. I simply think we've gone a little too far this time, and the amount of tests, both in the number of tests, the number of TEKS that were required, and the stakes that we placed on those tests, giving too many opportunities for students to fail. If you have 15 opportunities for having a bad day at school, or in my case, in Killeen, where they get deployed regularly, and my mom just got shot in Afghanistan. How do you do on that test that day? It's one test, one day, and I think to put all of our eggs in that one basket is just a mistake. I think we need to be broader than that.
Part of what you're doing, I believe, and you correct me, I'm sure you will, but is to sort of set up different pathways. I've forgotten how do you refer them?
We call them endorsements.
Endorsements, okay. So, for instance, is a STEM endorsement one of your areas? How do you refer to that?
We have a STEM endorsement. Now, there's all kinds of suggestions and bills with endorsements. Let's get that. Let's talk about that concept if we can for a minute. We presently have 3 graduation plans: minimum, recommended, distinguished, basically, or advanced, or whatever we're calling it. It changes name from time to time. Our proposal is that we go back to one high school diploma. If you think about your high school diploma that most of us got, we got a high school diploma, period, end of discussion. Now the question becomes how many hours or how many credits and what do you have in those credits and all that. But we want to give the flexibility beyond that, what we're presently calling a foundation diploma, a single diploma. We're probably going to get rid of the foundation word even eventually and say a high school diploma. And have, in addition to that, endorsements. We're proposing 4, one of them being STEM. A kid, I'm so science and math oriented, I can't even draw a stick figure. But my son-in-law is an artist, graphic design artist. My daughter's a musician. My son's an attorney. Everybody has different places they want to go in life. And these endorsements Oh, Ken, I didn't see you over there.
How are you doing, Mr. Chairman?
These endorsements hopefully let kids take the things that they're interested in, that they plan to move into in life. And we want each of those endorsements, the STEM endorsement, the fine arts and humanities endorsements, and so forth, through all 4 of them, whatever we call them. We want to have the flexibility within each of those endorsements to go all the way from a certificate level. We want a certificate in phlebotomy, and that's as far as we want to go. But we want them to have that flexibility if they decide later on in life that they're a phlebotomist in the hospital and they decide, oh, I think I'd like to go on for a nursing degree. We don't want to close that door. Our present plan tends to close that option to go back to college and tracks kids toward the minimum plan on a lot of kids that are having the slowest, hardest time in school. And we want to leave those doors open and give them the flexibility within each of those endorsements to go all the way from the certificate level kid to somebody that's college and PhD bound. And each of those 4 endorsements in our bill have that flexibility, we feel like, built into it. And we want those children and their families, with the help of their high school counselors, which needs to be improved, obviously. Well, that's one we can bring on big time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Choosing that path early is important, and having the flexibility within our education system for the state not to push everybody toward a STEM path, which we kind of tended to do, and let them have the flexibility to go to what they think their ability and willingness to work is important to that choice that needs to be made within the household.
Now, we have also put out a proposal, I think you had a chance to take a look at it, which build in some flexibility and build in some different pathways. But specifically with the STEM, under your STEM proposal, they would be required to take, are they required to take 4 years of math and science under STEM?
I'd have to go back and pull the bill, but I think so.
Okay. Well, then my question, sir, is that they're headed to STEM, obviously, I mean, not 100%, but generally they want to go to a 4-year institute and get a baccalaureate degree. What assurance do we have under your plan that those upper level courses will be taught at the level which will allow them to succeed once they make it into, let's say, that one of the finest institutions in the entire state, that would be Texas A&M. But when they go there, when they get there, we want to know that they can succeed, and that the courses they've taken are orange juice and not orange drink. Because in the past, unfortunately, that simply hasn't happened in far too many cases.
Okay. Let's take those admission requirements first. If I live in Oklahoma and my kid wants to go to A&M, they're only required to have English Language Arts 2 and Algebra 1. If I live in Tyler, Texas, and my kid wants to go to A&M, he's required to have English Language Arts 3 and Algebra 2. And so we've already got a disparity, and as a result...
Will we let anybody from Oklahoma go to A&M?
Not A&M, no. And so we got a differential idea of what's required for admission to our universities. And I think that's one question we need to think about. In our bill, we propose to leave the option open to take end of course exams in ELA 3 and Algebra 2, and make those courses optional for the student. And the end of course exam optional. And there are other things that will suffice for that 4th year of math and 4th year of science. And we need to broaden those course offerings so that there are more things that meet those requirements. But they don't all have to be purely Algebra 2 and English Language Arts 3. There's a correlation, by the way, between successful taking of Algebra 2 and success in college. The question becomes, is that cause and effect relationship? Did I do well in college because I succeeded in Algebra 2 in high school? Or do we simply have more kids that are brighter, harder working, more motivated, taking Algebra 2 and go on to college and do well?
Sort of like band kids do better in general, but is it
Right.
because they're in band, or because they're better, I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
We know
more motivated?
We know that music students, the kids that do well in fine arts music in particular, just knocked the top off the SAT scores in math and the ACT scores in math, and they tend to be great students in college as a rule. Which brings us back to the point that I love using my daughter's example. As you know,
Yes, sir.
I pick on my daughter, and I've told her I'm going to do this. She was a good student in high school, would have never passed Algebra 2. Never in her life would she have passed Algebra 2. She went to Hardin-Simmons as a music major, graduated magna cum laude, went to Texas State rather. As she told me, I'd been saying she had a 4.0. She didn't. She had a B in her master's degree program, and has now completed a PhD program with a 4.0. But would have not been allowed to graduate had she been required to take Algebra 2.